Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we were discussing a lovely stainless steel Monopusher Chronograph launched in 2019. This is the 42mm Montblanc Heritage Monopusher, a watch that lives up to its name, heritage-inspired with a monopusher actuation. So it is 42 millimeters in diameter in steel. It's 15 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip. It is 51.3 millimeters, and it has a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. So though heritage inspired, it is a full-sized modern watch. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, I'm going to go out and say that this watch probably shouldn't be worn on a wrist smaller than 15 centimeters because it is broad lug to lug, fairly thick, and structurally massive. I do think you need a decent sized wrist to wear this well. So 15 centimeters circumference or larger. And again, my wrist here is 16. Taking a look at the hardware, we have a mesh bracelet. These are lovely bracelets made by a company called Clasp in Germany. They make most of these mesh chain style bracelets. And the bracelets all start as huge fabric sheets that are cut to shape and to suit from different sized links. Smaller links if you want to dress your bracelet, larger links if you want more of a sports style, Breitling style, Omega style mesh bracelet. So once cut, the flanks, which have sharp burrs, are machined down until they're smooth and glossy. And so the result is a wonderfully supple piece of chainmail that feels more like fabric than it does metal. It's wonderfully supple and silky and hugely flexible. As you can see also, there are little detents that make it easier to use the clasp to fix in place. It's not a conventional perforated strap. It has those little detent slots on the bottom, and we'll take a look at the clasp now. You can see we have vintage-inspired mid-century straight bar junction with the case. That's the way it was done historically. Twin trigger release, so you have to press both triggers to pop open this clasp. And now you can see how the system works internally. There's a little retention system that will pop out and dig into the underside of the chainmail strap, and then it will close. And once it closes, all the excess length beyond what you need is hidden underneath the strap. So there's no need for minder loops, and there's no strap length externally visible beyond what you strictly need. Snaps shut. Twin trigger release means it stays shut until you want it to open. So that was the Clasp bracelet. Now we take a look at the case. The case is handsome, but it is massive. Although heritage-inspired, there's a lot of metal here. The flanks are handsomely satinated. There's a transitional bevel on the side of the handsomely tapered lugs, and then they're polished on their hood. You can see that the bezel itself has been inset from the case somewhat with a small vertical lip. This is to pare down the visual mass so it doesn't appear monolithic from the side. Then we have a shallow, polished conical facet to the bezel, and then an enormously domed cambered crystal, and that's designed to look like a vintage plexiglass, part of the heritage element of this heritage monopusher. Now you can see the Montblanc star, or I guess it is the snow-capped peak of Montblanc, on the outermost face of the monopusher. Now, of course, you actuate the chronograph using that coaxial pusher within the crown. And being a monopusher, when you stop, you must reset. So that's how that works. We have a vintage-inspired, narrow, sharply knurled crown and a dial that is quite handsome. Outboard, we have a combination of red quarters at 15, 30, 45, and 60. We have a blue track for the minutes and seconds. And then we have a silver-white base to the whole dial, so it's opaline or satin finish outboard. Then we have this rough, granular finish that runs underneath the applique numerals and hour indices. So those are applied and rhodium-plated for a nice contrast. We have, once again, that matte opaline-style finish at center. And then we have these sunken sub-registers with a concentric guilloche pattern inside of each. And you can see that the dial is actually thicker at the center, so the cut of the sub-registers is relatively slim at the edge. And then there's a deep scalloping towards the center of the dial. We also have Dauphine-style hands, and we have blued hands for the sub-registers and for the chronograph seconds at center, which has a red varnished tip. Now, I should note this is a loomed watch, but before we check out the loom, take a quick look over at the chronograph minutes register. We have little marks at 3, 6, and 9, and that's because historically, in the past century, Long-distance phone calls were typically billed in 3-minute increments, and that was a big charge, so you wanted to keep track of that. That's what that little calibration is all about. You'll see it on many vintage-inspired and true vintage chronographs. Now, taking a quick look, we're going to turn out the light. And you can see, though not heavily loomed, we do have a fully loomed dial with all indices and hands. Note about these Montblanc watches. Montblanc has 2 assembly facilities, one in Le Loc, where this is made, and one in Minerva, where the lower volume high horology pieces are made. So this watch is from the Le Loc facility, and as you can see on the reverse side, it is rather elaborate. This is a solid case back. You can see that it still has a packing sticker on the back, so the original owner didn't enjoy this nearly as much as he should have. That's to your advantage. This watch is very, very fresh. So, as you can see, Montblanc, manufacturer, Villeray. This is, though, one of the Le Loc watches. Taking a quick look at the manufacturer, you can see it is elaborately portrayed on the reverse side. And underneath all of that, water-resistant down to an impressive 50 meters for a dress watch, we have a movement called MB2512. It's automatic winding with unidirectional action. It has a 48-hour power reserve. It's Sellita SW500, I believe, that's been modified. The SW500 is Sellita's version of the Valjoux 7750. So the timepiece inside is based on the 7750, but there are changes. First, it's a monopusher, so that's important. It's on the high end of power reserve for a 7750-based movement at 48 rather than 46, 44, or 42 hours. It does have hacking or stop seconds. It beats weight 8 beats per second. Pivots on 33 joules. It has a lateral clutch, or I should say really it has an oscillating pinion, which means when it starts up, unlike a conventional lateral clutch, there's very little jump to an oscillating pinion movement. And so when it starts, there's really no play in the system. Also important, it has a column wheel. So it's been modified to use a column wheel. And the column wheel means it has a crisper actuation feel when you operate the Monopusher system. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.